Before we get started, my name is Dane Clement. I am president of Great Dane Graphics. We have been a group Stahl company for about 6 years now. I've been creating artwork for the decorating apparel industry for about, well, for a long, long time. I even hate to say it anymore, since 1986. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to show you, what makes our artwork different than any other artwork you're going to find out there available, and why you should consider using us. And I'm going to show you how to build those files so they cut friendly and weed friendly in your production. With that, let's get started. Right now I am at my Great Dane Graphics website. Hopefully you can see that. One thing I do want to mention is one of the things that I'm most proud of is if you look here at the bottom of the screen, there's 5 images here. Actually, if I can move this over, there's 10 images. And what this is every single Tuesday we have new content here. So we add new designs every Tuesday. Now, if you're looking at this right now, I know you guys are coming in here to attend a vinyl cutting webinar, and you're looking at these images and they're all full color and that sort of thing. So let me show you the difference and show you why we do what we do. So I'm going to click on this kayak skull image here, and we'll get this window that pops up. Right? So what we do when we create our artwork is we create our artwork with 7 different production files. So this is the basic layout for the page. So if I click on this radio button here, we're looking at the digital printing image. So I can zoom in and you can see what that is. Now the digital printing image can be used, it's designed to be used for direct-to-garment or dye sublimation, or really any other digital printer or large format type of situation you might have. It is a PNG image on a transparent background. So when I turn off this little this preview window here, if you notice this column right here says the file formats that you're going to receive when you download them. So this one's PNG. Here's a print cut file. So for those of you here that may have a Roland VersaCam or a Mamaki print cutter, this is a file you would use. This thing is another raster image. It's a full color PNG design. But if you notice, the edges look a little wonky, right? So what we do is we add a bleed to the artwork and we assign a cut line to it already. So when you print this on that Roland VersaCam, for instance, or whatever printer you have, it's going to print looking like this, but once it comes back and cuts right along the artwork itself, once all this excess stuff is weeded out, you're left with just a finished image inside. So the reason we do this is because one of the biggest complaints that we would hear from people out there using services and trying to create the artwork themselves is they would take an image and they would put a cut line beyond the image. So they would come around here maybe 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch outside the design, and then they were left with a white border, right? And it looks like a sticker when you apply it to anything. Well, sometimes you want that sticker look, right? That's the whole idea behind it. But sometimes you don't. So what we do is we get rid of it. We put the cut line in here. Once it's cut and weeded, all this bleed area disappears, and there is no white slivers, there's no white outlines, there's nothing but the artwork itself. So we go through the effort and create this production file. I'll get rid of that one. Now this one here is a screen print color, and what that is, it's our full color image separated for screen printing. So we take this image and we do the separations in 6 colors or less, and it's separated in simulated process color separation technique, so you can print some halftones and create a killer design on any color shirt, from white to black or anything in between. This next one here is inkjet laser printing. So this is, if you have an Oki Data toner printer with a white toner, you would use this file. And the reason we have a special file for it is because those white toner or any toner-based image printer doesn't work very well if you have soft, faded edges, right? So what we do is we make sure that its cut outline here is everything that is in the image is contained, and that way we can put a solid white toner underneath that full color image. All right, so the next thing here would be a black line or screen printing image. Now this is the vector drawing, right? So there's a lot of vector art companies out there. Well, we have that too. It's just one component of our 7 different production files. So that looks pretty cool, but if you take a look at it, and you guys are here for the vinyl cutting class, so you would know that some of these little bitty lines, these little bitty details, no way we can hold that on a cutter, right? It's just too small, too thin. There's way too many cavities to weed this guy, so it's just problematic. So what happens is you take an image like this, or you take one from the internet, or one from another art service or something that's not designed for cutting, and then you have to make adjustments to it. So you find yourself spending an hour or an hour and a half changing this piece of artwork just so it becomes cutter friendly. Well, we do that for you. We take care of that. So right here is vinyl cutting detailed. If you take a look at this image now, it's much more simplified, yet still has enough detail to really see what it is, know exactly what this design is. But if you notice, all the line work, they're thick. There's no little bitty tiny cavities. There's no super thin long lines in here that we have to concern ourselves with about not being able to hold on that cutter and as we weed it. Ooh, I apologize for that. I thought my phone was completely in the off position. Whoops, sorry if you heard that. All right, next thing is vinyl cutting basic. We do 2 different file sizes for our vinyl cut. We do a vinyl cut detailed and a vinyl cut basic. And some people ask, well, why do you go through that trouble? Why are you giving me 2 different things? It's another decision I have to make or whatnot, right? Well, what we do is we create these 2 things because they're different and they're supposed to be used in different instances. So for instance, if you're going to print a left chest or a hat and you want to apply some of the very small graphics, you're going to want to use the 3-inch version. Because if you can imagine this guy being 3 inches, the line weights need to be thick enough to hold on that 3-inch print. Once you weed it out, you have to have detail there, but you can't have things too small. Because if we just took the final cut detailed and reduced it to 3 inches, there's no way these line weights are going to hold. We'll never be able to cut it and have a clean graphic. So those are the reasons we create 7 different production files. So whatever the decorating technique that you use is, we have something for you. All right, so let's take a look here. We're going to search for something. We're going to download an image that we're going to use and create a full design with text and whatnot. So since it's football season and I'm a big football fan, we're going to search football in the search dialog box. Right. So if we look at the results here, we notice that we have embroidery included in our searching. Well, for this instance, since we're doing a vinyl cut image, we don't really need that. Besides, since what we can do is we can filter our results by what you see here on this page. So over here to the left where it says categories, I'm just going to search just the stock art. And when we do that, it's going to eliminate any of the embroidery designs that we also offer. It's just going to take those right out of the result pages here. So as we scroll around and look around, we can see that there's no embroidery, just our designs. Well, what you see is you see all the colors, right? You see a digital images and print cut images and that sort of thing. Well, if you're looking for just the vinyl cutting stuff, then just filter it again and go to the vinyl cut detailed or basic, whatever one you want. We're going to look for the detailed one because that's the one I want to use for this class. So now you see it's filtered down again to just the vinyl cut detail images that we want to work with. So we can scroll through and see a design and pick it. So let's go ahead and use this one. So I'm going to click on this little fireball football image, and what happens is I clicked on the vinyl cut image and it comes to this page, right? Well, don't freak out because this image now is full color again, right? So what it does is it says we chose one of these images, so it goes to our entire page here. So with that, I'm going to come down to my vinyl cutting detailed, right? And I'm already logged in, so see it says hi Dane right there. If you log in and have a subscription, it'll be there as well. So we can notice that we get an Illustrator file, a Corel Draw file, and an EPS file with our vinyl cut detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the download button, and it's going to just charge me for a download. Now what that means is for $18.99, you get 200 downloads per month. So there's like very, very inexpensive solution for you. So I'm just going to do that. It's going to charge us one download. Now I'm using Firefox right here, this particular browser. So if you're using, if you use Firefox or if you use Google Chrome, something like that, it's going to download this zip file. If you're on a Mac or a PC, either one. So what I'm going to do here is it defaults to open with an archive utility. I don't even know what that is. I don't use that because all I want to do first, and you should always want to do this, is take the file and download it to your computer so you always have it, right? So I'm going to save that file, and when I hit OK, it's going to download this vinyl cut detail zipped file. So I hit OK, and if you notice, you can see this little guy bouncing here at the bottom, and that's my zip file. So I'm going to pull it out to my desktop. I'll go ahead and hide this guy for now. So there it is. Now you see this is a file number. It says vinylcutdetail.zip. Well, this file is zipped up, and we get some questions as far as with our artwork. We say, well, I try to open this up in Corel and it won't work. I try to bring it and open it up in the Illustrator and I can't get this thing to do anything. Well, that's because this file is not usable in this instance right now, this minute. So it's a zipped file. We have to unzip this file. So on a Mac, which is what I'm on, I'm going to double click. Now, if I do that, you see this little folder. So if I was on a PC, what I would do is right click on this guy and then go to extract all. And then what happens is it does exactly the same thing. It gives you a folder right with the zip file. So now I have this folder. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And this is what we have. We have 3 different file formats in there. So I'm going to click, and I'm in Mac. I can hit my space bar, and I can do a quick preview, which is really handy if you've downloaded a lot of images or have a lot of images in a folder. You can hit the space bar like that, and then just scroll through with the your arrow tools, go up and down, that kind of thing. So here's my AI file. If I'm going to click on the top one, hit my space bar, there it is. So that's a preview of the design that we're looking for. So now I'm going to hit my down arrow, and I'm going to preview this. Now, unfortunately, this neat little trick of previewing files is not available on a PC, as far as I know anyway. But if you notice this says there is no image here. It's showing me a hard drive, and it's saying, hey, this is a vinylcut.cdr. Well, that's the Corel Draw file. And Mac does not speak well or play with Corel Draw. That's why we don't have a preview here. But if I hit the next down arrow, that's an EPS file. Now, that EPS file I can bring in the Illustrator or Corel Draw, so it works on either way. So we have the file here. I'm going to leave it on my desktop, and we're going to come back to this. We're not going to use it right now this minute, but we're going to come back to this guy, and we're going to create a whole design with it. So I'm going to leave him there. What I'm going to do is come to my art file, and I'm going to grab these 2 images so I can show you and explain to you the differences there. I'm going to get rid of that. I don't know what that's there for. All right, so here's a Tiger 10-inch, right? So I'm going to open up my page, and here's the file. So if you notice, what I did was I grabbed those 2 images and drug it onto the Illustrator icon. Now I want to show you one other thing really quick. If I do this, if I create a new document, right, and then I go to File, and I come down to Place, because anytime I've written 2 books, T-shirt Artwork Simplified, Adobe and Corel. They're things and lessons that you do every day in your decorating business. But this, if I do this, when it comes to screen printing, we always tell people place that EPS file into Illustrator. And when you go to the EPS file, you find it, and you make sure this little link checkbox is checked, right? So I'm going to hit Place. It's already open. Yeah, I want to create another one. So I'm gonna click my mouse here, and there's my image, right? Well, the reason I want to show you this is because it's not what we need. So if I preview this guy as outlines, and I go to View, right, come down to Outlines, or if you look over here, here's a shortcut. It's Command-Y or Control-Y on your PC. It will show us, well, it's supposed to show us outlines, but that's why I'm showing you this one. It doesn't. It shows us this big X because we've linked an image file, EPS. That's not what we want. So the thing about our vinyl cut files is we can open them up and just go to File, Open, and choose it, and this is what we get. So now when I go ahead and preview my outlines, I go to View, Outline. Now you can see the artwork and the actual individual lines of the design. So when it comes to this type of EPS, one that you want vector images to be editable, you open in Illustrator. You don't place it. Okay, so let's preview this. back this way. What I'm going to do now is go to my 3-inch tiger because I had that opened at the same time. I grabbed both of them and dropped it on the icon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to come over here to my 10-inch tiger. I'm going to scoot him over just a bit, and we're going to paste that little guy down, and I'm going to move him over here. And I'm doing this to show you the difference, right? So like I said, we create a 10-inch here and a 3-inch. Now, if you look at the image, you can see that they're the same design, right? They resemble each other, but there's a lot more detail in the 10-inch version because we're capable, or we can control the amount of detail that we're dealing with, right? We can weed this guy with this much detail because it's a much larger image. If we're going to do a left chest or a hat, for instance, a little 3-inch version, we have to simplify it. So I'm going to kind of walk around this thing and show you things to look at, what to consider when you create your designs, whether you do your own or use one of ours. You want to make sure that it is production ready. So these are some things that we do and some of the tricks that we use to get that done with. So one thing you want to consider is you want to make sure that the line weights that are used are not too thin. If they're too thin, they will struggle to stay on the carrier sheet. You want to make sure, as an absolute minimum, they're 1/16 of an inch thick. If you want to go thicker, all the better, no problem. But absolute minimum would be 1/16, and I'll show you how we create that. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to choose my ellipse tool. I'm going to close this window for now. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on this guy, and I'm just going to drag out my ellipse tool and make myself a little circle. Well, I'm going to fill it. I'm going to go to the top of the menu here. I'm going to fill it with a bright color. Let's use maybe this pink. All right. And what I want to do is I want to make this 1/16. So if I go to the top, now in Illustrator and Photoshop, by the way, I know this is not a beginner's class necessarily about those programs, but real quick, I will point out that any of the tools here on the left, and this works in Illustrator or Photoshop, almost any Adobe product, I click on the tool and then my options bar along the top of the screen changes, right? So it gives us things that pertain to that tool and allows us to create the artwork using that tool. So I want to make this little guy here 1/16 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is just going to punch in those values, and a 1/16 is a 0.0625, so 0.0625. And when I hit enter, I know that it's a circle still because this little box right here, this link, is checked. If this link was unchecked, I could punch in any number I want on either side and turn it into an oval. So we don't want to do that. All right, so what I want to do is just show you this. This is super high-tech artwork creation stuff here, right? We created a 1/16 of an inch circle, meaning we will have nothing in our design that is thinner or smaller than this 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to zoom in. We're going to grab this little circle here, and this is how we do it. We mouse around. We make sure that if I put my 1/16 inch circle inside this line, that it's plenty thick enough, right? It covers it. If I go in here and make sure that the gap has to be the same thing, has to be bigger than a 1/16 of an inch. As I mouse this guy around, just move him around, you can see on screen here that all the line weights are thicker than that 1/16 of an inch. And this is how we do it. So what I want to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to show you this piece, because what you need to remember is, obviously, if a line is going to come to a point, then it's going to become smaller than a 1/16 of an inch, right? Obviously. So what we want to do, though, is we want to put that 1/16 of an inch onto a point like this, and we want to make sure that it doesn't really go far down here. Watch. This is what I'm talking about. So if this line happened to be like this, right? Super thin. This is going to be problematic in holding it on our carrier sheet when we start to cut and weed, because it's smaller than a 1/16 of an inch and it's just long and thin. So what happens is that as we weed this guy, the little tip here is probably going to come up, and then it's just going to open up or flail around, or it's going to tear really easily. So you want to make sure that that those lines, anytime you come to a point, you keep them fairly thick and come to much more of a blunt point, right? They're not very long and thin. And then just keep going around the whole thing, make sure our gaps are good, make sure the line weights are good, and that's it. So you can really walk around the images very, very quickly using this neat little trick. So I'm going to do this and come up to the 3-inch version and show you a couple of things. Everything's done exactly the same, but we did have to consider a few other details because it's so small. So if you look at the tiger's eyes, right on the over here to the left, we have an eyeball. So we were able to put that shape in there because of the size of the image, and we can weed that fairly easily. So that's a cavity that's okay. It's plenty big enough. It's big enough, right? It's much larger than our 1/16 of an inch circle, so we can pick it out really, really quick. Well, if we come over to a small version, if we were to cut this, it would just, although it might actually be a little bit bigger than that 1/16 of an inch, it becomes much more difficult to cut and pick, and you don't want to have that many cavities that small. So if you notice too, inside these little points here, they're much more rounded. Right, so as that cutter comes around, it can swing around this as a little curve shape and come back. These are super blunt, so it comes to the edge, turns, and then comes back very, very easily, very quickly. And if you notice the way this design happens to be, when you're weeding this out, let's just focus on the 10-inch version. So I'm going to grab my my extra material here and take out the outside. So all this stuff is going to weed out, and it's all open. Right, so if you notice, it's going to be very few pulls. And this whole guy is going to be weeded out in just a couple minutes. You can pull from here, and then all this stuff is open together. And then we pick out the 2 eyes. So when you create your artwork, make sure you keep the cavities much, much larger, line weights much thicker, definitely at no smaller than a 1/16 of an inch, absolute minimum. Like I said, 1/8 of an inch would be better. It would be easier for you to weed. So those are the differences between the 10-inch and a 3-inch that I wanted to show you, because those are extremely important, and this is what it's all about. This is where the production time, you will get killed if you don't do the artwork properly. So we take care of all that for you on our designs, and I wanted to show you how and why we do it. So when you create your own, you know what to do next. All right, so just wanted to show you that. Let's go ahead and take a look at that football design now. So I'm going to close these. Don't need these anymore. And by the way, for you guys coming and attending this webinar, we will give you a free month to try out our artwork just for coming as an appreciation, because we really do thank you for showing up and spending time with us. So what I'm going to do, here's my downloaded file, right? So I'm going to go and double click my Illustrator file, because if I double click it, it's going to open up in Illustrator, and if I go ahead and preview my outlines, I go to View Outline or hit my Command Y, my Control Y, I can see that we have editable nodes and line weights and things, that sort of thing now. So let's preview it up full size, take a look at the artwork. So I'm going to just click on this and move this up a little bit, because what we're going to do is we're going to throw some type on here, right? Because although we might be able to use just an image, most often we're going to have some sort of team name, some sort of school name, something along those lines to that we need to work with. So let's just go in here. I'm going to grab my type tool here in Illustrator, and I'm going to click, let's do Jackson. Let's do it on 2 lines. We're going to do Jackson High. All right, we've got a little high school work we're going to do. I'm going to enlarge this. So if I click on this text box and hold my Shift key, it's going to enlarge the font and keep it in proportion, right? So I'm not doing this. I mean, we can do that if that's the look you want. You can distort it however you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and keep it proportioned. I do not like that font, so what we're going to do is leave the text selected. And let's go choose a bolder font. I like Acme here, so we're going to choose this font, and then there it is. So I'm going to make this football a little smaller. I'm going to have this here. So now what I want to do, though, my text is selected. So my type tool is what we use to create it. So if you look at the top here, since we have the text selected, we have all these things that allow us to change this artwork. So I want to go to right justified. So right now it's left justified, right? I can go ahead and align it by the center, so the type is stacked directly on top of each other, or I can go to right justification. So that's what I want to do. I want to do the right justification for this particular image and bring it over here. Now, another thing that I'd like to show you is, I think when I click off this, if you take a look at the screen, if you squint your eyes, you can see squinting your eyes is a great trick to see if things are in balance and they're designed well. So a couple of things I see wrong or that I want to adjust or make changes to this text, right? So I'm looking at this thinking there's way too much space in between these two rows of type. Now what that space is called, it's called leading. So I want to close up the leading in this image. So if I select the type, and at the top of my screen, you see this little character button? There's a character in a paragraph, and you can tell that they're links, right? So I'm going to click on that, and then I'll get my character palette will pop up. And it shows us, hey, we're using Acme font. We got regular. The actual type size is set to 120. So right here, if watching my mouse over this one, see it says set the kerning between the two characters. Well, we're going to do that as well, because also if you look down at this image, I think there's too much space in between this O and this N. There's little bit too much in between this S and the O. Probably the I and the G has a gap that's too large, and maybe this J and A is a little too tight. Now these are very picky things, right? Well, I'm an extremely picky designer. So, but the stuff I'm going to show you how to do this trick is to help you take your art and your designs to the next level. Because one of the things that I see a lot of, especially when it comes to vinyl cut designs, is bold block fonts, no serifs, which I agree with for the most part. This particular font has a serif, but it's a very small amount, and it's a very bold serif. So it doesn't come all the way out to some tiny little foot over here that can be problematic when weeding. It's very bold, so it works well. All right, so what I'm going to do is we're going to take care of this leading first, like I talked about. I want to get those two lines of type a lot closer together. So if I come over here and I mouse over this, see it says set the leading. So it's set at 144.59. I can go up with this little thing. I can go down. So I want to go to the down button, which reduces the amount of leading. So if you notice, as I click my mouse, I'm moving those two things together, right? So I'm squinting my eyes, and right about there is what I like. If you think it needs to be a little wider, you can do that. It's total judgment call, obviously. So I'm squinting my eyes, and when you do that, these little lines here disappear. At least they do for the most part, because of my old eyes. But it looks pretty good, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the kerning out, so we can take some space out of some of these letters that I think are problematic. So let's do that. We're going to grab my type tool, and I'm going to click inside this guy here until I get my blinking cursor. There he is. And I'm going to go back to my character palette, and I'm going to come to the kerning, set the kerning between those two letters, and I'm going to reduce this. Now, as I move my mouse, it's going to move slowly because I'm only doing one little click at a time, but you can see that that O is getting closer to that N. So right there, I think looks pretty good. I'm going to take a little bit out of this S, so click in between it. When you see that blinking cursor like that, you know that's where it's going to make the adjustment. Go back to my kerning and reduce it a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go down to my A here and my J. I want to open that up a little. So before, we reduced the kerning by hitting the minus button, so I'm just going to open it up just a touch. I think that looks more balanced. And one more time here between this I and the G. Again, these are very picky decisions, but I like my artwork to be the best it can be, and it only takes a couple minutes to do. So, all right, so that's looking pretty good to me. I think we're going to start heading into a different little piece now. So I want to, now that we have the type looking like I'd like, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And we're going to move it down right about here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to see these Jackson highs. Those guys are tigers. But before we do that, I'm going to add a couple of lines here. So I'm going to grab my, normally it would be a rectangle tool, but evidently last time I used it, it was an ellipse tool when I created my little tool thing. So whatever tool you use last, it will remember. And in Illustrator and Photoshop, if you, just so you know, if you see these little tiny, they're very tiny, I know it's going to be tiny on your screen, these little white arrows in the bottom corner, that just means if you click and hold, there's other tools underneath there, right? So the rectangle tools at the top, that's what we're seeing. That's how it's going to come as a default, but in reality, when I came here, my ellipse tool is at the top, because I just drew that little 1/16 inch circle just a few minutes ago. So if I click on this circle again, go to my rectangle, what I want to do is I want to draw a couple of lines in here. So we're going to put two lines to kind of fill this gap, and then I'm going to put tigers in the middle because This Jackson Highs, their mascots are tigers. Right? So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to zoom it up, kind of move it around. Now, I could do this. I could pull out a ruler, a line guide, and the way that, and I want to put it right on top of my letters, right here. Just line it up with the top of the letters. And I'm going to pull it out again. And what happens is your rulers need to be visible, right? So if they're not, you want to go to, like sometimes it'll be like this. So if you don't see any rulers, just go to the View menu, come down to Rulers, and then go to Show Rulers. And then you'll see them. So there it is. And all you do is you click inside that rule, and then you pull the line out. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. And what we have here, those are two guide rules. Now, they're not printable, right? So we're not printing this file. We're going to be cutting this file. But just a word of caution, before we save this file, we have to delete these extra things, right? These guide rules, because I'm using, when we cut this, I have a Roland GX24 in my office, right? So I'm using Cut Studio, and Cut Studio does not like to see these extra weird pieces. So we're going to delete those shortly. Only reason I put them there is because I want to grab my rectangle tool, and what I want to do is put some horizontal lines in here. So I'm going to come right about there, and I just want to make them as wide as the space here, something like this, right? And I'm going to fill it with black and stroke it with none, so it's looking like that. So now if I click on this horizontal line, I'm going to hold my Shift key. So right now I click my mouse, I'm holding the Shift key, I'm moving it to the bottom rule right there. So now if I hold my Option key on my Mac or the Alt key on a PC, and then I let go, it's going to duplicate whatever it is I'm working with. So I was able to grab this rectangle, hold the Shift key, bring it down, hold the Option or the Alt key, and let it go. So now I have two of them. So that's the only reason I wanted those rules there, just so I can see kind of where to place them. So now what we're going to do, since my cutting software does not like it, I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to hit the Delete key. So we know it's selected when it changes colors on us. It's deleted. Now it won't become a problem when we send our file out. So now we're going to throw some Tigers word in here. So let's do that. And it's very small, obviously. So if I grab one of the corners, you can see I can change it and distort it and do those kinds of things. Don't want to do that. So I'm going to click and hold the Shift key and the Option or the Alt key, and it's going to grow from the center, right? So I can do that and try to get an idea of, what I kind of like that, and I can let it go, and I just filled that space. But what I want to do is this. Couple of things as you design stuff and you start to understand the problems that you have on the production side, right? The weeding issues and that sort of thing. So when you start cutting this stuff now, because this Tiger's word looks very big, so when I reduce the file size, it's probably, if I look up at the top of my screen, this is 1, 2, 2.5 inches, almost not quite 3 inches long. This word Tigers, that's very small, which means it's still going to be 1/16 of an inch big enough so we can pick these this little piece of the R. That's not the issue. But what I'm concerned about, and I know this before I even go in and finish this design, is these little serifs, right? When the image is this big, right, the foot of this A is called a serif as it comes down and it has that little squared off bottom. Well, that's very large, so that's easily detectable and easy to cut and easy to weed. But when it gets down to this size, these things are really, really small. So I'm going to change this font. I'm just going to click on it and choose a different font. Let's see, what font would we choose? Let's go Franklin Gothic. Yeah, we'll do this one. It's pretty bold and it's very simple. So we just changed it there. So the only serif in this whole thing is this little dog piece with the G, and that's plenty big enough. We should be fine. It's not quite centered, so I'm just going to kind of move it over, get it where I want it. And now if I click on it, I can nudge it up with my arrow tools, which is a kind of a neat little trick. Makes it easy to design. So let's go ahead and zoom out so we can see. So we're almost where we want to be, right? First thing I need to do is I got to make this thing cuttable. But we're going to do that. In order to make it cuttable, we have to select the type. And if I come in here and I look at my layers, for instance, this is my artwork layer. So if I turn off my eyeball, this is all the artwork that's on my page is gone, it looks like, right? So if I turn the eyeball back on, there it all is. So you see it says art. If I click on this little twirl down thing, we have tigers This looks like a little rectangle bar, and then this is our Jackson type. So just wanted to show you how that stuff works, because once you know how it works, you can start selecting things and moving things and that sort of thing. So here, if I turn this eyeball off, that is our entire football image. So if I look at this, it says it's a group. Another thing that Roland Cut Studio does not like is grouped elements, and I'll show you how we're going to avoid all that by welding things together if you're a Corel user, or we're going to unite them here in Illustrator, right? So if I take a look, this is one piece, and then this is another piece of the football. Well, we want those to cut together, so we're going to get rid of that. So what we can do is we're going to select it. So right now, see, they're grouped together, and these are selected. This little, if I turn that eyeball off, the only thing right now that's selected, or was selected, it is now again, is this. So you can see these little red boxes over here on the layers palette. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to go to the object menu, and I'm going to come down to compound path, and I want to make compound path. So when I click this button, if you look over at the layers, it's not going to say group anymore. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to hit compound path make, and now it's a compound path. And what that means is this entire piece of artwork is now considered one unit, which is going to cut no problems on our cutter. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is this. I'm going to select my type. I can do it two ways. I can select my type. I can hold my shift key and click on each individual piece of artwork that we have on here. But first thing I'm going to do is select my type, and I want to convert that to outline so we can cut. So if I go to the type menu and come down to create outlines, it's no longer text. Now it's just individual outlines that we can cut. So I'm going to do the same thing with the tigers. Select the tigers word, go up to the type, and create outlines with the type. So now I'm going to make an adjustment to this guy. So if I select the artwork, hold my shift key, and click on this one, the type, and this stuff here, now we're all selected. So now what we do is let's go ahead and shear it. So if I come over here to this tool here, my scale tool, see right underneath that it says Shear Tool. So what I want to do is I just want to change the angle, but I want to change them all at the same time so it looks like they were created and built together. So we have the Shear Tool selected. I'm going to come in here and click and push it up. See that? Now if I hold my shift key, it's going to constrain it to just up and down. I can go any direction I want. So what I want to do is this. Click and drag it up and kind of get it like that. I think that's a little more interesting, especially for t-shirt artwork. So we're going to position it like we like it. I think that looks pretty good. Now what I want to do is grab my football, and right now here's the football, here's the type. Well, it's two separate units. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But in order to make this a little bit more interesting, if we grab the football and we mouse over, let's say over the words a little bit, something like this. Now it looks, that to me, I think personally, that looks a little bit more interesting because our type and our ball artwork, or whatever the artwork happens to be, looks like it's one unit. It looks like it's designed and it's built together and that sort of thing, and that's the kind of stuff I like. I'm not a real big fan of here's an image and way underneath it I just have straight in the line, bold, block type, and I see it absolutely all the time. So one little thing about this, what we need to do now, if I go back up here to view and I come down to view my outline, I can see this, that they overlap. Well, if I just send this thing to the cutter right here, it's going to cut this and cut that, and we're going to have all these little bitty bits and pieces all sliced up, and that's not what we want. So if I go, and I just hit the shortcut, by the way, to get back. So there's the view outline. I just went to the view preview. All right, so if I click on my football image and now hold my shift key and I click on my type image, I'm going to come look for, I'm going to have to pull up a palette here. So if I go to Window and I come down to Pathfinder, right, I'll get this dialog box. And see right here, this is the Unite button in Illustrator. This button is the same thing as the Weld button in CorelDRAW. So if you happen to use CorelDRAW or ever used it, that is the same thing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have that selected. Whoops, let me pull it back up. There it is. So these two are selected. So now if I come over here to the Unite button and click that button, notice right here it looks like it's all one piece, and we can verify that by going to preview the outline, and we can tell there. So right now when this thing gets cut, it's going to slice out down here, come to the C, and then go around, and now it's all one unit. So it's no longer two pieces, separate pieces. It's now one unit. So now what I'm going to do is preview it in full color. So now I'm going to select it all, because we need to have, when we want to send things to the cutter, we want everything to be one compound path, one unit. So if I select everything, that once I'm finished my design, this is the last step that we do, grab everything on my page and go to my object and come down to compound path and go to make. And when we do that, it is now one unit, and you can see over here everything is on that one little layer basically, and it says compound path. So the artwork is done. If I click on the football here, you can see my type and everything is selected, which means it's all one unit and moves and will cut as one unit, which is what we're trying to do here. So the next thing we can do is we have to create the cut line for it, right? So we have to have a specific color, not really specific color. It needs to be a spot color with a specific name. So at least for my Cut Studio. So if you're using a different, there's a whole lot of different software packages and cutters and cutter software out there. So whatever it is that you use, obviously you would have to do yours a little bit differently. But for any Roland Cut Studio or GX24s and that sort of thing, this is how I do it. Now you can click on this and we can fill it with none, and we can just stroke it with the line that we need to make our cut line. The problem with that is it's going to be super thin. So this is kind of a neat way to keep the look. So when you preview and through your folders, remember how I showed you all the file formats that were in the folders? We hit the space bar and kind of arrowed through. What I like to do is create a new layer. So inside my layers palette, and if your layers palette is not up, you don't know where to get them, just go to the window menu and come down to layers, and it'll pop up like this. So I'm going to create a new layer here, and there it is at the top. So now what I'm going to grab this artwork, this compounded path here. Oops, I should have did this before. Let's see, like that. Grab it and drag it onto the new so it duplicates it. So now I'm going to select this one and put it on that other layer, right? So now this artwork has only one compounded path, and if I hit this little twirl down, now my new layer that I just created has that. So if I turn this bottom one off, the bottom artwork, that's just the color version. That's the black and white. That's so we can see it in that folder or see a very easy preview so we can see what it looks like. And then if I turn this one off, obviously there's nothing there. So what I want to do is make adjustments to this layer. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that spot color, that contour is the name of it. So if I double click my fill box here, I get the color picker. So I'm just going to click on a bright green. It could be green, it could be pink, it could be any color you want. So right now we have this bright green, and if we look at our swatches, there's very few swatches in here. So I'm going to grab my green swatch and I'm going to mouse it all the way over here, and if you notice I've got a little green plus sign, and when I let it go, it places that color right in my swatches palette. If my swatches, if I started off a document and it was brand new, it would have all my color swatches here, and I wouldn't have to do this step. But what I would do is double click a color like I'm going to do now. So right now if I mouse over this green swatch, you can take a look. It says cyan 62, magenta 0, yellow 100, and black 1%. That's going to print this black right now as a process color. I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click this green swatch box, and when we finish this I want you to watch this. So you see right now it's a solid green little square in my swatches palette. So I have to name this guy Cut Contour, whoops, not all caps by the way, upper and lower, and then a capital C, no space, Cut Contour, and then right below it says color type. Now we need it to be a spot color for the software, the Cut Studio or the software to recognize it. I think that's the case for all the cutting software that I'm familiar with. So spot color, Cut Contour is the name, and if you're in if you're a Corel user, it's and custom spot colors are the same thing. So treat it as spot. So I'm gonna hit OK, and now look at my swatches palette over here changes. So in Illustrator, it shows us a preview. If you see a square that has a little cornered dog-eared cutout with a black dot in the middle of it, that now is a spot color. So I'm going to select this artwork here. I'm going to come up to my top fill. I'm going to fill it with none because I don't want any printing in there. And what I want to do is I'm going to stroke this guy with this cut contour green that we just created. So I'm going to click off of it, and there we have the outlines, right? So it's not quite finished. It looks like it is, but in Illustrator we have to be very specific when we create this thing. So again, now there is a Cut Studio plugin. It does not work with this latest version of Illustrator that I happen to be using because this is the latest version, and it doesn't work. So, but what I want to do is show you how to do it manually anyway, right? So no matter what version of Illustrator you're using, you want to send it to a Cut Studio, even if your Cut Studio is 5, 6 years old. This right now, what I'm showing you will work, and you will read your files no problem. So you select everything in here. I'm going to close this Pathfinder window. I don't need it anymore. And if you notice at the top of my screen, I have a stroke here. Here's my filter with none. We have that outline stroke with the color. So you see this little stroke link? I want to click it, and it gives us the stroke dialog box. So what I have to do now is we have to stroke it with a 0.25 line weight. So when we do that, it changes the line weight of our outline. And right here where it says limit, it's set to 4 right now. That has to be 1. So it needs to be, the limit needs to be 1 with that little time thing. I'm going to hit the enter button, and then we just set that. So now if you take a look, right, it's very, you probably can barely see it on screen because I can barely see it on screen. So if I zoom in though, we can tell that there's that green outline in there. That is going to become our cut line, right? So the reason I like to leave this other one in here, this other layer, by the way, is so we can see it, right? So there's the artwork. Well, if I didn't have that and I just had this, it's very tough to see. So it doesn't matter that you have these two layers in here, because when you go to the Cut Studio software, it's only going to see the outline. So now one more thing. There's our outline, and I'm going to go to File, Save. So if I do a Save As, I'm going to name this guy Jackson Football. We don't want to do that. Football. And I'm going to put it on my desktop. And I'm going to save it as an Illustrator file. So I'm going to hit Save. But right here is where we have to pay attention, because if I just hit OK, this file will never come into my Cut Studio software. It just won't work. So I have to come in here and save it as an old version. And when I say old, I mean old as dirt, right? Illustrator 8. I think Illustrator was on version 8 when I started working in the computers way back in the day. So Illustrator 8, there it is. Now it says saving a legacy file. It's going to freak out on you. Don't worry about it, because that's what we need. We have all it is a basic vector outline. So I'm going to hit OK, and it's telling me it's going to could give issues, preview issues. It's all right. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hide this guy now. And if I look here, there it is, with that old antique Illustrator logo. That tells me that this guy is ready to go to my cutter. So that's how you create the artwork. What I'm going to do, we got 10 minutes left, so let me see something here. Do we have any questions? Let me take a look here. All right, and I don't see many. I see some cool stuff like awesome class. I like to see that. So, all right, so there's not much there. But one other thing, let me go back. I'm gonna open this. I'm gonna open this up. I want to spend a little bit more time on this piece, on the welding and the making of joining pieces to turn them into one unit, right? So here's a design piece, love and dance. Well, obviously we're using some different symbols and shapes, and we have some overlapping and that sort of thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up this Pathfinder window again, and there's that unite. So I can click here, and then we can click here, and we can click here, because all these are joined, right? And we can, once they're all selected, if I hit this unite button, they all join and become one piece. what I would recommend you doing though is not doing that all that often, because what happens is if there's only what we have, the L and the heart and the V, and then we have the L and the D, right? So these are very small bits and pieces, so we'll probably be okay with selecting them all at once. Here's a problem. If there's more than this, if there's 10 or 8 or so different pieces, and we try to, so let me just hold the shift key and select, and then hit the unite button, it's going to cause problems, or it could cause problems. It doesn't always work. So rather than doing that, like selecting all these pieces and then hit the unite at the same time, what I like to do is just real quickly, I usually do it this way. I select those two and hit the button, and then I select this one by holding the shift key and hit the button, and I move on and on and on, because it's very quickly to do. So I can grab the L here, right? I can grab the L. I'm capable, but it didn't want to click. So there it is. Hold the shift key and then click on the D. I have the technology. I can do this. All right, so now those two are done. Hit the button. So the reason I don't like to do them all at once is because I've had issues. If there's a lot of different little bitty pieces, they're very problematic, and they don't always translate to the cutter. So if you want to make sure, and once you get to that point, man, you're wasting a whole bunch of time. So what I like to do is do it this way. Just do one at a time, and hold the shift key and click the next one, hit the button, hold the shift key, click the next piece, hit the button, and it unites all these things, and it just makes it that much easier to deal with, because I'm not doing it once and then coming back and having to do it again because it didn't work on the cutter, right? So now if I look at my swatches, I have nothing in it. So one more time, because you can never have too much practice at creating stuff, I'm going to make it green. I'm going to click and drag it, bring it into my swatches box, double click it, name it cut contour. I'm going to make it a spot color. I'm going to hit OK. There it is. So now if I select everything, just Command A, I'm going to fill with none. I'm going to stroke it with that color. I'm going to hit the stroke box, and I'm going to punch in 0.25, punch in a 1, hit enter, and there it goes. See, very hard to see, but ready to roll. So save it as Illustrator 8, and you're good to go. So let me do this. Since you guys came to this class, and we only got a few more minutes, I'm going to look and see if we got any other questions, or any questions. And in the meantime, I'm going to bring this up on screen. So I really appreciate you guys coming out. If you want to check out our artwork and get a full first month free, there's a code for you. So if you write that code down, go to the website, sign up, you'll be able to download 200 pieces of art for inside that first month on me. So let's see if we got any questions. Do we have any questions? All right, so did he say 1/16 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch? Both, right? I use 1/16 of an inch if I'm doing a detailed full-size graphic. So if I'm doing something full-size on the front of the shirt or jacket, wherever it might be, and it's 10 inches at least, 10, 12, whatever it is that your normal full-color, full-size image is, I use 1/16 of an inch. I can tell you this, if you're using something like, let's say glitter flake, right, which is awesome. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to use because I dig it. I think it's cool. Don't think I would ever wear it, but I know why the girls get it. They just, it dazzles. It's awesome. But it's super thick, so I would not use 1/16 of an inch on that. I wouldn't use 1/16 of an inch on any flock materials, but most other things, it's not a problem. If you want to use the glitter flake things, I would go with 1/8 of an inch, that sort of thing. Let's see. Yeah, somebody really likes the quick look. Hit the space bar inside of a folder and just scroll through using the arrow tool. It is an awesome trick. I wish there was something as easy on PCs. All right, so what tool did I use to rotate the text? Let's go back over here. Choose my arrow tool. That was the Shear Tool. I'm just going to move this. Actually, I'm just going to delete it for now. So the Shear Tool is here. So I set some type. right? I just set it at any size, no matter what. I'm just going to hold my shift key, kind of stretch it out, make it this way. And over here, right next to this little rotate tool, if I click and hold, it's normally going to be set to the scale tool. So if I click that, go to the shear tool, and then that's just going to shear it in whatever way we want to do. So you can get really wonky and crazy, or you can just do it like we did. This way, up and down, however you want. That's how I do it anyways. I'll make sure I pull that screen back up again while I'm searching through some questions here. Please repeat how to unite again. I think we did that a couple times. Hopefully you got it. How do we get a free trial for purchase? There you go. Write that code down. You get a full month. Oops, full month. 200 pieces though, just for coming. So I thank you for that. Oh, now we got a lot more questions popping in here. Is this going to be recorded and uploaded to the Stahls TV? I believe so, yes. And it says, is this class also available for Corel? Yeah, as a matter of fact, and my art director, Joe Costello, is going to be doing that class, and it's later today. I want to say 2 o'clock Eastern time, possibly, if I remember right. So if you're a Corel user and you want to check it out, go to that class. And let's see. This class was extremely helpful. Thank you very much. Thanks so much. Yeah, thank you. So, all right, I guess we're done. We got 2 minutes. Great class. I mean, I can keep reading the great classes, and that was awesome and that sort of thing. So, for the next 2-3 minutes. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of way good job, great stuff, but I haven't seen any more questions lately. So, I really thank you all for spending the time with me. Hopefully you learned a little bit. Evidently something was right because most people seem to like it. Just remember, when you take that image into your Cut Studio or into a cuttable program, you're going to have to mirror it so it cuts out properly on your materials.
Dane, just a real quick question. Is
Yeah.
3 month for new customers only? Just so we get that clarified.
Yeah. Yes. The free month here is for new customers that never tried us out and want to give us a shot. All right, so something in here says to unite fast, try to create the outlines and unite the whole thing. Well, it does work, but sometimes it doesn't. So that's why I use a compound path. It's not any longer, doesn't take any longer to hit the object menu, come down the compound path, make, and then I know it works when it goes to the cutter. So it's one of those things. You want to hit the unite button, that way it'll work. It's up to you. So I'm just showing you how I do it because it works for us. So. All right, I think that's it. Thank you, guys.
Okay, Dane, thanks very much for your time today, and that'll conclude our class.
All right, thanks a lot.